Hey, it's Taco Tuesday, so I'm here to talk. This should be section 3 of Orion's Belts, Alpha Life and Eve Echoes. And it's super niche. I'm really glad for the opportunity to be reading, though. Especially since we're getting into my favorite part of the game, navigation. It is looking pretty grim outside, even though it's spring. I don't know if you can see too well. And then there's the Kodama looking all adorable. Yeah. Give it about an hour, see how far we get. Otherwise, just got back from the DMV, which was relatively painless. It's kind of weird, especially with the economy being the way it is. Don't expect to actually own a car until maybe ever. But renting seems like a viable option potentially in the future. It's just as like a get out of hell free card every now and then. Maybe go camping or transport stuff around. Really, I got the license renewed so I have an address on a piece of ID that I can refer to should I need. Because, I don't know, I keep applying for jobs, but it's pretty grim out there. And I'd really rather write for a living, but it's not like that pays really in an age where folks can just ask an AI to write them whatever they like. What strange times. Anyway, I've hemmed and hawed long enough. Let's get into it. Orion's Belts, Alpha Life in Eve Echoes. For those who haven't seen the rest of the playlist or who jumped straight to this part, cool. Hopefully you found the meat. But the goal is to play Eve Echoes freely, like a free-to-play, being able to compete without spending money, especially considering the boat folks are about to find themselves in as the dollar kind of nosedives, screaming into the ocean. Anyway, navigation. All I ask is a tall ship and a star to steer her by. Sea Fever by John Corn Masefield. Tutorials can only do so much. They can highlight the right answers with blinking lights and promises, but in the end, they cannot push the buttons for you. More importantly, there are more features buried within Eve Echo's interface than existed when the tutorials were first conceived. This makes them overtly simplistic. Let's pick up where they leave off. The focus for an alpha is on smaller ships. Maneuverability is their gift, but navigating is a skill. Targeting stuff and flight using said targeted stuff as a reference is generally useful, but will get you killed at higher difficulty points. Double tapping the screen to maneuver is almost always better for the survivability of a small ship than approaching or orbiting. You want to be moving at all times in a little ship. You want to be moving tangentially, at a right angle, relative to your enemies, to minimize the odds of them removing you from existence. In naval warfare, as in life, there is a strange inversion of capability that occurs with scale. As objects specialize, they gain blind spots. In the case of ships, bigger ships with bigger guns usually suffer from inertia. Mass takes more to move. The bigger the freaking gun, the harder it is to aim. Ever try killing a mosquito with a sledgehammer? Let's start with a box step. Let's say the bad guys are streaming in at you from some point in the distance. The fast ones comes first, and the laggards trail after. An orbit will bring you into and through their lines. At higher difficulties, this is death. Imagine their lines of ingress as the body of a letter T. You want to fly in a path along the top of that letter T. This is called crossing the T and is a time-honored naval tactic. In a three-dimensional scenario, you can cross the T both horizontally, and vertically to maximize your defenses while minimizing the amount of time you spend turning. A circle would be better, but that would take a lot more time and attention than a combatant can manage. The goal is to shoot either down their throat or up their kilt. This way, you're moving relative to them, while they're a sitting duck from your perspective. This is helpful for smaller, faster ships, since you can tell which direction you want to head next with minimal thought in battle. But you set the rhythm at which you fight. Only you choose the steps at which you dance. More on maneuvering under fire in later sections. For now, just remember that you want to be moving like a duck on a line at a shooting gallery if folks decide to start throwing stronger stuff than stern words your way. That is, if you're staying in range for any reason whatsoever when warping away is an option. Jump Around. Jump by Van Halen. Now, I didn't put any illustrations in on this section because it's three-dimensional and I am not, I like to paint. And I like charts and spreadsheets and data analysis functions, but when it comes to actual maneuvers, I don't have little planes on a stick to show kind of how this would work. Well, I guess I kind of do have spaceships. Toys. I was looking to get into A Billion Suns, give that a try with some of these little random odds and ends. But let's say this is a probe. And let's say this is a big old battleship type dude. You want to be moving horizontally or vertically or in a box step, circling off of the head of that big ship. This only really works well with NPCs. If you try this against players in PvP, you're going to get blapped, especially if it's a bodyguard or something big and designed to kill small ships. Thankfully, most whales don't really like kicking and clubbing seals, kicking down, kicking little guys. There's a few exceptions. There's a few locations where if you want to test your fit against a consistently impossible gate camp, you can't go wrong with the Ethereum Reach. ODSF has a lot of really good bubbles set up out there. And you can goad them into coming out to play fairly easily. They're a very active group, which is really good to have for practice. If you want to make the most ISK, by the way, mining, that's the place to go. If you can get good operations out of ER, the Ethereum Reach, you can make good ISK. But these maneuvers aren't going to save you from PvP at all. It's really most useful for PvE. Like a Rifter can do content up to Tech 7, Tech 8. And with enough little dudes, little ships, maneuvering well enough, you can actually tag team up to T10 with free-to-play vessels. This turns what is, run-of-the-mill, not easy, but run-of-the-mill farming situations into kind of little mini raid bosses. And it's a challenge. It's fun. It's the goal is to play the game, not to breeze through the content with this mentality. Anyway, the box step is kind of the basic defensive position for any sort of small ship. Destroyers benefit the most from it, but I'll get into that later in the book. Sorry. I just wanted to try and give a three-dimensional explanation of what I was talking about just there. Jump. Go ahead and jump. Jump by Van Halen. I just kind of quoted that. I didn't point out any specific quotes from the song. It's a pretty grim song when you think about it. You might as well jump, give up kind of thing. Folks don't listen to the lyrics on these things. And as upbeat and funny as the song is, there's a lot of dark stuff that gets slipped past just because it's got a relatively upbeat and cheerful tone. This is why I like ska. Anyway, warp is your best defense. It's when a warp ends that the shooting starts. There is usually a delay between when the command to warp out is input and when the jump begins. This is because it takes the ship time to align and calculate a safe point of re-entry on the far end of the subspace tunnel they open up. Your alignment time is based on redirecting the front, so if you warp to something you're already pointing at, it's faster. If you're already moving at 3/4 max speed, you'll start the jump. Network effects prevent these actions from being instantaneous, but perfection is a guide, not a destination. You can't be touched until you re-enter what is colloquially dubbed the grid. The grid is your space, normal, plain, mostly empty space. There's plenty to go around, but yet never enough. There's plenty to go around, yet never enough. Always have an exit strategy. Plan B is more like Plan Z if it's too slow. Knowing where you're headed next and having an alternate not too far off will save time and stress should you stumble across danger. Even then, danger will stumble across you. Even the best escape plans will fail, but not always. If you select and hold the warp button, you can input the range off of the target that you want to land at. Never warp directly to a signal's origin, 0 kilometers, unless you believe there's a safe landing on the distant end. Generally, the farther out, the safer. Warp to 100 kilometers, turn and burn away from the bad guys, is almost always sound advice. Players have an option to take a preset path instead of inputting each command in sequence. In an ideal world, you should be watching each jump for unguarded loot or trouble, especially in nullsec, whale country. Most of real life is more important than moving pixels around in a server, meaning that there will come a day where you will need to use autopilot. Autopilot. The song referred to here is Semi-Automatic by 21 Pilots. Yeah, that's a good one. It will get you killed. Autopilot will get you killed. Excuse me, sorry. Autopilot. It will get you killed. It will also save you hours of attention and effort once you know what you're doing. Autopilot follows a route to reach a destination. There are a few preferences you can set to help you reach your goal safely. Just tap the center of the bar with your destination's title to see the options. Avoid 0, 0, and prefer shorter, safer, or less safe. The star map can be used to pick destinations once you're aware of where you might want to go. If you're looking for practice, try getting to Orien. We have cookies. Orien spelled O-R-I-E-N, by the way. If you run a search in the star map, anyway, you'll figure it out. Let me get back, sorry. Even better, use autopilot as a compass back home while you tool around doing whatever you want to do. If you set your base station as the destination, the path home will always be highlighted in yellow on your Signals tab. This can give you a one-button instant escape if you pre-align to the first jump point. Hello, Kodama. Just start autopilot and you should warp off, assuming you aren't tied down. It's not perfect. Sometimes autopilot quits midway through the journey. If you quit in warp to assure autopilot continues, the rate of success is way higher, but bumping into stuff, like an object, warp disruption field, or bubble, will knock you out whether you're signed in or not. As a last resort, there is always the avoid list. There are some gates that are constantly closed off by PvP blockades. These are fun to try and smuggle goods past. Covert operations craft are best at this. But going around is usually safer. The gates change with the political drama that occurs out in Null. If possible, always send a scout to try a new route. Make special note of the system where they got for future investigation or avoidance. Finally, autopilot is extremely useful for navigating the star charts. If you ever need a point of reference, setting autopilot will put a dashed line across the spaghetti network of ways and wheres to keep you from getting lost. Filters. You see what you look for. Switching between distance and names as the sort for the signals tab will save you minutes upon hours of time searching for stuff. In the upper rightmost corner of your screen is a little filter button. Opening that puppy up will allow you to set preferences, but the lower left sort by toggle is where the real money can be found. Get in the habit of updating your view filters to suit your goals. Creativity is like breathing. Addition and subtraction take turns around a balance point. Loot suits any filter, so does the sun as a point of reference. Then again, when you need your focus on specific targets, such as fleet mates or enemies, having a specified filter ready at hand is essential. There is no time to service a need for preference when jumping is the difference between a kill or being killed. Bookmarks. And the song for this is Drift Barbie by Inky and Blueberry. Just a dope music video and fun, like really upbeat music. Bookmarks let you label a point in space. Always edit your bookmarks. Label them in a way you can understand at a glance. Two from the same system will look too similar to tell at a glance, which is for where, so a naming convention helps. Plus, you can share bookmarks in any chat you have access to. Local is almost always accessible. This is a recipe for all sorts of fun. A good corporation will give trusted line members the ability to add bookmarks, as they are the fastest way to communicate locations in space. A better corporation will outline lines of income using bookmarks to include sage advice along each step in the path. You can save a bookmark at any point, even in warp, and it will register the location of your ship as a place to revisit should you so desire. Picking random locations in space is a good way to avoid others, assuming they don't locate you there using a red scanner. Safes, as they're commonly called, make for great dead drops for loot. Any jettisoned cargo will stay accessible for up to 2 hours. Then it has a chance of disappearing up until 6 hours past when it was created. Folks can't scan for loot boxes, only ships. Just be careful you don't drop a box without a bookmark near enough to pick it back up. It's possible to set a bookmark in relation to another signal, like a pirate anomaly or mining location. However, this can be dangerous. Autopilot will land a ship smack dab in the middle of trouble on a bookmarked signal before attempting to reach the bookmark itself. If you're not careful, this could result in a needless death. It's safest to warp to the desired distance from origin, then jump again to the bookmark when possible. Remember, 150 kilometers is the magic number for jumping. You don't have to jump on top of an object greater than 150 kilometers. You can fake out and limit the jump range, if you so desire. This can be used to warp on top of an enemy between you and a distant signal if they're in line. It can also cause a human player to jump somewhere they shouldn't. There is little in the world more satisfying than a well-timed feint. If a bookmark is on grid or in the same space relative to a signal and autopilot is selected, the ship will align and jump to that point so long as it remains greater than 150 kilometers away. This is how ninjutsu is performed. However, under 150 kilometers and the vessel will slow boat to that point. This is how playing ninjutsu fails. Ninja Arts. The song for this section is I Think You Freaky by Diane Ward. And that's a good one. That's a classic. Great music video. I think you freaky and I like you a lot. Really good. Historically, ninja were insurgents. They're louder now. Still, guerrilla tactics are evergreen. They were masters of sabotage, misdirection, and intelligence gathering. ninja managed many seemingly magical military maneuvers by preparing battlefields and fighting as unfairly as possible at every turn. They blended in among farmers and peasants, outgunned by armed and armored soldiers behind enemy lines. Escape is a kind of victory. Small ship pilots have much to gain by learning ninja tactics. Most of my plex comes from looted goods. By manipulating jumps using bookmarks, terrain features, and mind games, small ships can escape or ensnare in equal measure. They can also support bigger ships by picking up their loot for them. There are some limits on what you can drop for others to pick up, but if you're near an ITC without competition, you can time handoffs through the market with appropriately low prices. It helps to know the price to look for before fulfilling the acquisition. Remember, corporate rate is 20% below market. The market is a moving target, a target you can nudge. Such ninpo operations are ideal for the solo alpha, but small bands can benefit from them as well. Low-cost tools ready at hand that offer utility over specialization allow an implacable, steady operational tempo. Strategically, insurgency wins. It's counterculture, which exists only until it becomes culture itself. At that point, it becomes vulnerable to the next insurgency in the line. The only way to destroy an insurgency is to commit philosocide. Killing people doesn't work. Ideas are bulletproof. People must willingly surrender their beliefs, the beliefs that sustain their willingness to fight the power. Fighting against impossible odds is fundamentally epic, and people are slow. Philosocide is almost impossible. Almost. Memes cannot be destroyed, only released. Teleportation. I didn't put the quote here, but I should have put, it's teleportation, Kyle, from Tenacious D, where those are mind bullets, really could have played into the, missed it. Maybe in the next book. You can fund a fleet with a well-timed snatch and grab. Steal the bacon is my favorite minigame. To swoop and scoop goods, just make sure you're more than 150 kilometers away from the goods. 200 kilometers is safer. And set a bookmark. I usually label those bookmarks with a single numeral. I like X, but I didn't write that, sorry. Then set the bookmark as your autopilot destination. Then comes the fun. Loot the item. The game will warp you on top of it. Tap the autopilot arrow and grab as much as you can while your ship realigns to jump back. Repeat. Try not to get shot. It is possible to share bookmarks for entire fleets should they choose to allow you to. This can be terrifying to big, lumbering, expensive ships. A single frigate in the right place and time can cause a rout when all their big sisters jump in to join the fray. This is especially potent in defense of stationary positions. A defensive position should know the most likely approaches for attack and break those lines with an appropriate response, if able. Most don't. Didn't write about this, but side note here, I've only encountered one player-owned station where the Marzio landed at a point in space off of the station to try and where the defender showed up at a pre-chosen location. I think that was GGVP, excellent corporation. They didn't defend every one of the stations that I tickled, doorbells that I knocked on, but they showed up for one really good, an enlightening deletion a while back. But yeah, nobody sets up bookmarks or shares them within their corporations or across alliances. There's no sharing of information going on out there if you're attacking individuals. So player-owned stations are totally vulnerable for the most part, just because people don't talk to each other. It's funny. I don't know. I think it's funny. Shadow Clone Jutsu. You don't need to be performing petty larceny to find use in preparing the battlefield. A wolf pack of stealth bombers or other covert ops craft can become untouchable with the right coordination and enough undisturbed time on site. The old shoot and scoot is Sniper and Artillery 101. Folks can't easily shoot what they can't see. If you have a fleet capable of blinking out of sight and jumping away from enemy tackles while popping off shots when it's safe, there is little an enemy can do. Smart bombs aren't often ready at hand. Literally every player station is vulnerable to this tactic at time of writing. Stealthcraft do it in the dark. Covert operations craft can target enemies after they drop cloak to become visible again. This makes them extremely effective at surprise attacks. Covert ops ships are not the only boats cloaks will fit well on. After T5, the ability to signal tank becomes accessible. There are two restrictions. If there is anything within 2 kilometers, or if the ship is targeted, it cannot cloak. After dropping stealth, willingly or otherwise, there is no way to target others for a brief period of time. This assures cloaks are best used defensively. Smuggling goods past blockades is terribly good fun. Any low slot can sport a cloak. It costs fuel and slows a ship down significantly, but it's possible to get one pump from an afterburner or micro warp drive while invisible. Have you ever seen a mammoth dance? By throwing a cloak on, activating an afterburner or micro warp driving, and sidestepping incoming enemies, it's possible to hide even the fluffiest hauler. You cannot jump until the cloak is turned off, but by aligning to an escape and timing the speed boost just right, you'd be surprised just what becomes survivable. Bait and switch. Unfortunately, warping to bookmarks has its weaknesses. There is a slight offset that can land you in hot water in close quarters. There is also no way to warp to a different distance off of the point. When you warp to an object or signal, if you hold the warp button, you can set the distance offset. It's not precise, but it's possible to jump directly onto somebody's face if there is a signal greater than 150 kilometers away from you, but less than 100 kilometers away from them. It is almost always safer to jump to a random distance from an unknown signal or location. Ideally, jumping to 100 kilometers and turning around to approach the point you just came from is the safest. However, what is safest is predictable. When being chased, do that too often and you will be caught. Use mix-ups to confuse enemies. In training a target to land where you want them to before taking advantage of their attempts to predict your movements is pretty much just the bestest. Remember, you can create a warpable signal anytime you jettison cargo. Cans count. Anybody can warp to a can. Only members of the same fleet can warp to one another. Drop a can to bait someone into warping to a desired location. This can allow you to trade places with an enemy if they're thirstier than they are clever. It's circumstantially useful, but forever entertaining. Some of my favorite, not necessarily fights, maneuver fights, involve bait and switches. So setting up safes in farming location. Golly, this is all stuff I talk about later in the book. I'm sorry. It's just really fun to trick someone into trying to kill you. And then because they try to kill you, you get to escape. It's just I don't even know outfoxing them. It's Brer Rabbit play. It's weird coyote, trickery. It's golly, I love it. I love when it happens. Especially if it's someone flying some stupid overpriced Garmer or something, like a succubus landing in an anomaly, chasing down a little tall war 200 kilometers off of the Orien. I've seen succubus go hundreds of kilometers just to watch me warp to the opposite end of the anomaly at an alternate safe, or like watch me drop a can, warp to a different can while they warp to the one that I dropped, and then have them try and warp in and chase while I warp off. It's Bugs Bunny. It's Looney Tunes nonsense. And like, it will get you killed, but maybe not. And if it doesn't, it gets you laughing. Anyway, rant. I'm sorry. Security considerations. All the world will be your enemy, prince of 1,000 enemies. And when they catch you, they will kill you. Watership Down by Richard Lag Adams. There are 3 levels of security. Each has a degree of nuance afforded by the number associated with it, but in broadest strokes, they are high security, low security, and null security systems. High security systems are mostly harmless. It's possible to find high-level NPCs if you know where to look, but player hunters cannot touch you directly. Low is where an alpha's bread and butter may be found. The closer you get to an ITC, the more people tend to cross your path. Hunters love low-sec. Null-sec is hardest to negotiate, but offers the highest risk and most rewarding experiences. Sometimes it's safer than low-sec. Sometimes it's more dangerous. Trade can flow freely in high and low, but in null security there are no rules. It's straight Lord of the Flies up in nullsec. Gangs control the lanes. Be ready to learn the hard way. It's the fun way if you're ready. It's the painful way if you're not. Put another way, if you plan for foul weather, it ain't so bad. In fact, it is downright delightful to sing, dance, kiss, and cry in the rain, if you know what you're doing. The second best way to learn is to practice. To best retain information, learn with the intention to teach others. I don't go into it in detail, but it's a human factors trick. If you learn something and intend to teach it to someone else, it will stick more because you'll have purpose behind it. One of those like weird submission to a higher cause maximizes the potential of an individual evolved traits. Anyway, off of Tazy is MTAC OEE8. Off of Tazy, MTAC OEE8 is almost always camped, even though, another typo, even though the entry point 2 systems over at Obi is almost never has any traps. Wow, I missed the hell out of that sentence. That's a train wreck of a sentence if ever I saw one. Oof. Too late now. Page 53 is my least favorite page now. If you lose a ship or 5 at good old Mo, your odds of remembering improve. When information is attained with intention of warning a loved one, it sticks better. Plan ahead. When plotting a route, consider filters on the star charts that show the number of recent deaths within a system. Excuse me, sorry. Blah, blah. Who wrote this? Ugh. Null is built to eat the inattentive. As an alpha, we don't have access to chat stats in nullsec. This means we never know how many others are in the area. Predators and prey alike are out there lurking. Surprises can't all be bad, right? Surprises can't all be bad, right? Along the lanes, there are traps. Eve has a special term for the forms of blockade operations, though it undermines their lethality a bit. Bubbles kill. Take a point in space and forbid any warps from within a certain distance of that point, and what you get is a spherical no-fun zone, commonly indicated by a translucent orange membrane. This ball of nope is the dreaded bubble. Ambush predators blow bubbles and eat whatever poor flies fall into their grasp. There are those that pretty much do solely this for fun and pleasure. They're hilarious at parties, I'm sure. Count on running into a bubble across all nullsec adventures. They're cheap to set up, require fuel costs, sure, but a good bubble can take on a stable profit from folks just looking to bridge B from A. Some are impenetrable. Some can be slipped past. Some may be popped. Bubble bobble. This is the killer speaking by The Last Dinner Party. Not much to say on that song. Check it out, maybe. Bubbles suck. I'm not just posing as Squidward here. Bubbles and Eve Echoes are no fun zones of death for most alpha ships. A warp disruption field is a sphere to fear. They catch incoming warps like flypaper and prevent anyone within their grasp from warping out. With bubbles, players can create blockades. There are two ways of dealing with bubbles. You can pop them, you can pierce them. If you're friends with the folks farming a gate camp, they will usually let you pass, but try not to look juicy as you do it, ladies. What hurts as a surprise can become good fun for the willing. Bubbles rock. If you know what you're doing, there is nothing more tense than penetrating a bubble. Tension is fun. Smuggling goods is its own reward. Circumnavigating routes that others would fatefully and fatally plow into is what makes the coyote smile. There are impossible blockades, but only at great expense and risk. Popping a bubble requires violence. A gang of smaller ships can team up to take down a larger ship. However, Omega players are almost always at an advantage. Most Omega pipe cleaners use overwhelming force to clear a path should the need or opportunity arise. Watching hundreds of battleships, each worth hundreds of my own lowly smuggler, go screaming past to wreck some poor bodyguard ship's month is justice. There's plenty of material out there on how to hurt people and break their stuff. Let's talk about a lighter touch. Most gate camps are routine. To deal with them, it's best to create a safe bookmark within spotting distance, but outside spitting distance. The safest safe points are about 1,000 kilometers away from the gate. I don't talk about it in this book, mainly because it's only really practicable for Omegas, but there is a way to auto warp inconsistently to 1,000 kilometers off of the gate. I'm not sure if it counts as an exploit, but it's how people set up their cameras. I recommend not using it if you want to go kill cameras because it's a lot more fun to bait out fights, but I'll get into the whole baiting fights next. Anyway, just a side note. When you want to get past, just set autopilot to that okay, where was I? Sorry. Most gate camps are routine. Most gate camps are routine. To deal with them, it's best to create a safe bookmark within spotting distance, but outside spitting distance. Got it. When you want to get past, just set autopilot to that safe space and see if the path is open for business. Bookmarks are extremely powerful. You can create a back door with a series of bookmarks. Jumping from safe to alternate safe off of the same gate is great for baiting haters into hesitating. Just find a clear path to warp in from, and zip, zap, zoom, you're no longer restrained by the expectations of others. That, or you could go the long way around. That's no guarantee there won't be another bubble along the line. To proceed through nullsec, walk without rhythm. Use autopilot as a compass to highlight the way ahead. Do not activate autopilot unless you're down to gamble with your life. After each jump, check to see if it is safe. If it's not safe, try and run back through the gate you just came through. But understand, you're most likely dead. Rip in peace, Python. If it was safe, jump to a random planet not near your entry point. This takes you off the expected line of approach. Then jump to the next gate at 100 kilometers to try and buy as much breathing room as possible. Turn and burn, baby. If bad guys are waiting, the best bet is to warp out and plan a way around. You can try to outmaneuver them, but most interdiction ships are built to tackle others, and odds are even, it will be faster than you. Trying different approaches from different planets, signal sources, and so on will either take the guards off the mark or cause them to enter on the gate. This is an art, not a science. Good luck piercing the veil, one way or the other. Honk. Lord of the Flamingos mashup, Death Grips x Caro Caro Bonito. There's this cutesy kawaii song about eating shrimp. How many shrimp do you have to eat before it makes your skin turn pink? And that mixed with just like into the fire, it's a great mashup. If you can find it, like, well worth a listen. I love it. Mashups also in general, it's a rare and dying art. The last artist that like I really went rabbit hole deep on was Girl Talk, and there's so many good like mashups. I think I will never hear Seven Nation Army without subliminally hearing Sweet Dreams Are Made of These underneath it. Like the whole you're gonna fight 'em all. The bass line fits too perfectly, and I'm like happens all the time. Honk. If you're a high enough tech level to have unlocked signal detection gear, you could always honk with a red scanner. You'll need to drop cloak to check for trouble. Note that anybody in system has a chance of being warned that you're scanning if they're small enough that their sensors hear your ping. You'll need to sort outposts from outlaws, since alphas don't have chat numbers to rely on for intel. To hesitate means death. Analyzing signals leaves you vulnerable as you try to suss out where the bad guys are, if there even are bad guys in the first place. Raw dogging it is more satisfying, but the most dangerous route. Kessel Running, Skeleton Key by Dessa. That's Dessa Darling, member of Doomtree. I love her poetry. I love her rap. She is amazing. And Skeleton Key is a smuggler's delight. Smuggling begins and ends with the ability to cloak effectively. Remember the 2-kilometer minimum distance from anything to stay invisible? Gate camps know about this. They will approach immediately on landing to envelop their prey within the bubble, but also to smack into them in as smashing a manner as they may, to make cloaking ineffective. Landing in a bubble isn't a death sentence if you're quick enough. Aim at a right angle relative to the aggressor, hit the cloak button, activate whatever propulsion mod you have at hand, pray. Cloaks slow the vessels that wear them. You get one pump of whatever speed/maneuverability boost you have at hand, and then you're slow enough that if your cloak drops, a blind sloth with a broken arm could grab you by the jellies and make you beg for mercy. It's a race away from the Orien. If the aggressor gets there before the smuggler can go more than 2 kilometers, they will drop the cloak and eat well. Drones will frag a cloak as well, by the way. Good gate campers will make several passes over a point in space before giving up. All the while, the hidden ship crawls for safety. They crawl away from the hunters. They crawl toward escape, either out of the bubble or into the warp gate. They crawl. It is incredibly tense. Fuel burn factors in for both sides. I've even had carriers with destroyers for drones trawl through the black looking for little old me. Gratifying to know that my dozen million ISK investment could make a dozen billion ISK behemoth pause. More gratifying was the mad dash off-grid when a lucky thrasher splashed my trash's last holdfast. That Cryos survived by being aligned and ready to run, but only because the interdictor's bubble didn't join in the sweep. So this is a common thing for people who multi-box, I assume. They will leave the interdiction bubble on the gate because they can't maneuver both ships. I almost said planes. They can't maneuver both assets at the same time without, splitting themselves into 2 different individuals. So they'll leave the bubble on the gate and they'll send whatever decloaking option they have at hand out on approach. Which, in the case of that carrier and its thrasher entourage, like a thrasher clipped my Cryos, but I was outside the bubble enough that like I could accelerate up and warp to the nearest planet. And I had to reroute around that one. I didn't try and cloak through again, mostly because it doesn't matter. But point being, there are ways around even the most expensive toys. Specialized toys, no. A bodyguard on the gate, it will insta-lock, and if it's automated well enough, it'll react faster than any human being can. Which, I mean, kind of an exploit to bot that, but folks complain more about mining bots than they do about, like, automated response gate camps, which I think is stupid. Honestly, I'd rather have the bots in the game as targets. I'd rather have NetEase provide means by which players can automate their own operations, like having a player-owned station without all the timer nonsense, but a disposable station, like a camera setup or a mining outpost, dropping that in a system and being it red scannable, and then having that thing just like be destroyable like any ship would be amazing, right? Like, I think so. It'd be a target readily available and accessible to anyone in the know about where those sorts of operations go down. And you make those puppies cheap enough, and folks will just throw them out there instead of ventures and just steadily feed small ships to the void, gaining back whatever resources they gain from those from those outposts. But all mining vessels are essentially just resource extraction units anyway. Like, there's no mini game in interacting with the rocks that makes the gameplay itself any more complicated than botting, unless you think about it. And I get more into that later in the book, but tangents, I'm so sorry. Well, it comes from love. Block Party, Control by Halsey. Some bubbles are impossible to penetrate. Because Eve Echoes is pay to win, with enough money spent, it is possible to lock and shoot targets faster than human beings can react. Network strength also has a hand in any online competition. There will be bubbles, and there will be bubbles. These are best spammed with pods. Think of this as a peaceful protest. Trolling the trolls is fair game. The deaths will show up on the star map warning others, possibly attracting attention as well, but who cares? How much money did they spend to do nothing? It's fun to play their ships for them, and boosts their kill marks and egos at zero cost. They earned it. Their fuel costs are negligible, but a nice cherry on top to consider. Plus, they clog their own pathways when they blockade. Not that they were using them in the first place, but if you can get an enemy to deny a service to themselves just to spite you, then who is in control? Deliveries. This time I'm going to take it myself and put it right in her hand. Return to Sender by Elvis Presley. I didn't have a nickname for the king. I should have. There is a good reason why most of the best delivery ships are Omega only. Serving the delivery system is free money. Using it is prohibitively expensive at scale, but for smaller or lower cost assets, it's pretty neat. That said, it ain't like running missions, and it ain't Space Uber or Lyft or whatever. Every delivery is a bet. You put money down, you take a chance, and if it pays off, your money brings friends. To take a package requires you pay capital for the privilege of carrying the cargo. If it gets where it needs to go in one piece, you get paid. If it doesn't make it in time, or at all, you get to keep what you were carrying, but it's locked inside a box that you can only open as an Omega with max skills in delivery. Put another way, you lose big, usually. There are exceptions. There are always exceptions. It's easy money, but if something goes wrong, it goes very wrong. Nullsec is especially fond of destroying delivery vehicles. Just make sure your autopilot preferences are set to avoid null and passive gains get got. Blockades don't make much off the destruction, but it's devastating for industry and part of why the game is in the state it is. Smugglers are rare. For deliveries in high-sec, it's the most readily accessible means of making money while not playing. Passive income is harder to come by for an alpha. It's some ISK at the end of a couple minutes at the beginning and end of the journey. Deliveries make for great timers, or at least they are good at training to become better aware of time. Fragile. Handle with care. The song for this section is I Once Was an Ocean by Shaky Graves. God, I love Shaky Graves. So pretty much every one of his albums feels fundamentally different, and like he as an individual is storied and so rich, and just his style, his music, it's folk and country, but not, and spooky and raw. But this song and the music video associated with it, I Once Was an Ocean, is very different than what he usually puts out. It was a recent ad when I found it writing this section, so it made the cut just because beautiful, beautiful, beautiful art. People talk about never flying ships without insurance. Don't fly what you can't afford to lose is the most common framing of the idea. Those same folks will talk smack on the delivery system. The delivery system is insurance for goods. It's also the main means of making money off and by smuggling. If you can afford to buy whatever you're shipping, e.g. minerals or other gathered resources, putting it in a delivery crate can add an extra layer of security. At the very least, you get paid if it doesn't make it safely. Plus, if nobody accesses the system to take your goods, they automatically arrive once the timer expires. No risk needed. Also, you get paid. You get your delivery fees refunded if nobody delivers it. So, like, it's insurance that ultimately you don't have to pay for if you bet right and if you're isolated enough. With the state of the game at present, like, it's really easy to profitably interact with the delivery system. Just because everything's clear and in the open. And, like, yeah, it's harder to find deliveries. I've gone off script again. I'm sorry. I love... There's parts of the game that I absolutely adore that people hate. Drives me crazy. Someone is wrong on the internet. Dumb. I'm sorry. You can fly vulnerable for a thrill, but to laugh even after pirates pop your pod, wrap your goods before going into the void. That applies to dirt side life as well. Consistent delivery system use is how to build an in-game lottery for pirates to rage at. You can't sell a delivery box on the open market, and you can't open without maximizing the skill. You can't open it without maxing the skill, It's the vulnerability that makes the stakes, and the stakes makes the fun. Raise the challenge level, and lower it back down in turns, and the celestial dance becomes more entertaining. Run multiple deliveries at once to increase the challenge and profit. It's a routing problem on a timer. This goes for missions, the delivery system, and for personal goods. Play for the love of the game, and you will win even if nobody pays you for it. Compensation and recognition are nice, but unnecessary for joy. If you don't think so, try hunting miners with no intention of looting whatever rocks they're munching. We're delicious, ladies. On the flip side, it is incredibly entertaining to see a delivery failed notice for something that wasn't essential. Some poor fool lost their ship trying to drop off my Mark III micro warp drives, and all I can do is feel sorry for them and ashamed for my laziness. Banana with a kickstand. Things are shaping up to be pretty odd. The Green Gentleman by Panic at the Disco. And I forgot the exclamation point on Panic at the Disco. I'm so sorry. Beginning players going from ITC to ITC don't need fancy transports with the Imicus high mobility. Think of these little ships as space U-Haul trucks. You can hire yourself or others to move what would normally take a specialized vehicle. It's worth using even with insurance because of external risks. Life is more important than pixels. Renting transportation in the short run is far more effective than grinding for specialized options to use once and shelf for later. Consider, for a moment, the cost of raw cargo space. The best proportional amount of volume analysis per tonnage or for tonnage and cost is the Imicus High Mobility. They can move 10,000 cubic meters of stuff at a $500,000 price point. Similar utility frigates offer 10% of that space at a slightly lower price. The next decent transport, the Imicus Covert Ops and its cousins, can rock maybe a third of that and change with a multi-million price tag, plus the time needed to build it. The Imicus High Mobility is amazing, but it comes with a major catch. To transport your own goods, there is a fee for every use. This can get prohibitively expensive with distance and value. There's the added risk of someone else hauling your stuff. Paying others isn't a bad thing on its own. It's content generation. Still, it can be frustrating to have a smuggling setup all dressed up with nowhere to go. Deploy the boy! Run in the Shadows, Damn Your Love, Damn Your Lives, The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. Not going to try and sing it, but that song popped up at literally every coffee shop I visited writing this book. At least once. Sometimes twice. Like, The Chain is, yeah. Run in the shadows. Anyway, the cost to move goods seems based mostly on their volume. For example, a maelstrom might cost just as much to move as a mountain of tritanium. What it costs in ISK, it saves in time, risk, and effort. This is how the heart of industry pumps. Shipping smaller, individualized products like cloaks, frigates, or destroyers costs far less than trying to move big stuff. A Teyra can move about 12 to 13 Venture wherever you like, but a Teyra costs far more than moving 100 Venture costs through the regional delivery system. The regional delivery system is instantaneous and barely costs anything. Seriously, if you're not bringing things to market with regional delivery, you are missing out. A Teyra can only hit one destination at a time. You can ship stuff to multiple locations by splitting each stack of goods and making requests each way. Logistics is not sexy, but it's powerful. Better yet, if you post items for sale below JITA prices, you can ship them wherever you want to expand for the same prices as at JITA without the trip. Setting up a service for others gives you more options as well. Being good isn't just great, it's secretly evil. Plotting is surprisingly enjoyable. Just touch your fingertips and wait. Soon you'll have enough reasons to practice your evil laugh, should you allow stillness and silence to guide you. Buying from yourself using the delivery option is a way to expand while making it look like your product is moving. Technically, it is, but taxes make the generation of a mission for yourself or others cost a little. Whether that costs more or less than going directly through the magic button ain't important. The play is the thing. Setting prices to move objects from one location to another is also a way of circumventing the delivery system. This method is peak rebellion. With enough clout, you can save a significant amount while producing interesting challenges for merchants in the know. That Initiate Acquisition button is secretly the same thing as the Request Delivery button if you already know where to get the goods you want. But you get to set the price. Employing the universe is reach. Understanding the value of competitive pay is providing content. The corporations can work for us instead of the other way around. Okay, we're coming up on an hour. I got one, maybe two more sections in me. Kodama, I love you. I need this hand. There we go, thank you. Look at this cat. Every cat secretly believes, well, doesn't believe. Every cat knows it's the most feline to ever feline. Smarmy little. Oh, Miss Co. Thank you, sweetheart. All right. Evaluating value. Cold as numbers, but let's dance. calculation theme by metric. This section will have basic math. You have been warned. The fundamental value of an object in economics depends on its utility and scarcity. Eve Echoes is a game. There is nothing of general use in it. Therefore, everything is worth 0 ISK. Case closed, on to the next chapter. Except, that's not true. Games are extremely important. Play is how humans develop, process, and learn. We are coming to a point where the words Homo sapiens are less descriptive than the words Homo ludens might be. All language is play. Everything is worth all of the ISK. Case closed, on to the next chapter. Still here? Fine. Value is subjective. My fleet of Tall Wars means more to me than any battleship. Another player's battleship might mean more to them than my existence. It's the utility that makes stuff interesting. It's the scarcity that raises the stakes. The suggested ISK values for sold items are consistently higher than expected for most items. This comes from a lack of competition. The prices shown on the market are what I like to call resting bitch prices. They're claims. They are bets. Each price is a statement of, I think this object is worth this much ISK, waiting for someone to agree. Maybe folks have agreed at those prices in the past. Maybe they will again. I call the lower price the sells at price. The higher is the buys at price. There is a tension between each claim. The closer to the sells at one places an object for sale, the more likely it is for someone to step up and give it a home. The inverse is true as well. Playing the market within the margin, the difference between buying and selling in this case, is the best way to compete and assure an agreement is reached on the value of an object. Except this isn't always true. Sometimes merchants need a lot more than a nibble. In these cases, it's better to sell a whole mess of things above the margin. Without insider knowledge, all we can do is speculate as to what values people place on objects. There are plenty of items that are consistently out of stock because of folks like me. Stockpiles, or stocks, are how merchants deal with disparity in value. What was trash becomes treasure. What was treasure becomes poison. This is the cycle of satisfaction. Shuttles used to be viewed as a hollow status symbol of no use. Now, they are expensive hollow status symbols of limited use. The difference is near invisible for those with an accurate perception. Such differences happen dirt side too. Salt was once valuable enough to be the etymological origin of the word salary. Now it means frustration in internet slang. Almost as frustrating as folks who can't spell. Hi. Lobster used to be given to prisoners. It's a bottom feeder. Now it's given to prisoners who think their chains of gold are worth something. Funnier still when lobsters are used as an example of hierarchies in action. Vanilla is a term for something that is boring when it used to be a big trade good. Fried food is nowadays common where once it was a delicacy. The list goes on. Cherish even mosquitoes and the cycle becomes something silly. It's funny how easily you discover new and easy ways to gather ISK when you're not looking for it. My shuttle fleet, for example, is a near future mountain of wealth. By exploring the rare and useless, the common and efficient becomes so much more precious. By chasing the effective, whales become exactly what they wanted, and little more. There is no satisfaction in life for long. The trick is to chase variety. Consistency will assist the payout as individual sensation becomes a serious game. Tension becomes the plaything between fixations. I am alone with everyone. When I cannot help but commit, that I will be no more and become something entirely new. I die with every breath and ask for another. There is no ecstasy more worthy than life. The cycle of satisfaction and seeking results in the greatest show on earth. Folks forget to play the role of the audience. It's probably one of the most difficult ones available. Thank you for a neurotic and delightful performance, strange sibling. I love you. Do you realize how wonderful you are? Anyway, the main point here is that value is an ambiguous term. It is subjective, no matter how readily we apply objective terms to try and represent it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a mountain of rifters to roll around in. Growing the family. If I could attack with a more sensible approach, Gravity by the Dresden Dolls. Gravity plays favorites, I know it 'cause I saw. Self-replacement is the best heuristic measure of a unit's value. Steps up in progression are only accelerators for steps lower down in progression. Let's look at the venture and venture 2 in relation to one another. The raw cost of building a venture is around $1 million ISK. A venture can earn $1 million safely several different ways and is easy to self-replace. There's taking a quick dip into hostile territory to steal 100 or so units of C-70 gas, which is the worst risk but best reward. That's the deep approach. On the flip side, there is gathering enough Veldspar for $1 million plus titanium. That's also a deep approach, but with an emphasis on security over returns. It'll work, but slowly, which makes it preferable, but not as fun. That benchmark of having a backup is key. Having a backup for the backup gives full redundancy and a final escape plan should everything go belly up. Excess across bases becomes self-supporting and expansive by necessity. It snowballs. 2 ventures can become a venture 2, which can either replace itself or produce enough offspring ventures to expand into a new base. That venture 2 is more effective than the ships that worked up to it. However, it also costs significantly more to get a hold of. This means it costs more to lose. Having spares provides operational redundancy. Each operation reproduces similar tasks and purposes. Networks of self-supporting goals can produce complex patterns of experience. Complex patterns of experience create emergent stories. Long story short, I like to get 2 or 3 spares of a lower level toy before upgrading so that there are always alternatives for when the wolves come. Oh, and here's where I start talking industry. This one goes on for a few bits. I think it's a good breaking point. The next section is industry is not dead. It's not. Industry is its own little mini game, and folks don't play it. There's a whole lot of game in Eve Echoes that people just aren't touching because they'd rather spend money to get to the finish line. And it's not like it's a race either. Like the finish line, anyway, ramble. It's scenic, but it helps to go back through and do the race over and over again. Try different routes, try different experiences. Like, the only way to keep the tree alive is to flow through it. All right. I'm sorry. I know. Thank you for listening. I hope you have a wonderful day. I'm going to try and negotiate with this cat about whether I can have lunch while keeping my fingers attached. We'll see how it goes. She's vicious. Absolutely terrifying. Yeah. I hope you all have a good day.